Hey to all the spooks out there. Welcome back to another episode of Spine Chilling Chats, where every Wednesday we dig up the darkest corners of true crime, history, folklore, and the supernatural. I'm Ange, and as you can see, I'm all alone this week. Amanda's dad had major heart surgery, and she is obviously with him and her family right now. So if everyone could please send healing energy, well wishes, good vibes, prayers, whatever you got to give, please send it his way for a speedy recovery. I know I'd appreciate it, and I'm sure Amanda would greatly appreciate it too, because it's really scary when your parent goes through something like that, or any family member. So please keep them in your thoughts. Hopefully we'll be back at it next week. So our 1-year anniversary of starting our podcast is approaching fast, and we have big things in store. And speaking of store, we have these 1 year of Keeping It Spooky anniversary shirts. We also have matching coffee mugs. And on the sleeve it says 1 year of Keeping It Spooky, established May 1st, 2024. So head over to our website and click on the link for our merch store, which is www.spine-chillingchatspodcast.com. And you can buy yours right now. Or if you want to try to win some, probably next week we're going to be posting on our Facebook page about a merch giveaway for our 1 year anniversary. We'll probably give away a couple shirts, maybe some mugs. We'll see. But be checking our Facebook page for more details and how to enter for that. This week, since Amanda isn't here, and it just doesn't feel right to do anything without her, because who am I going to tell? Like the ghosties? They're not listening. I thought it might be fun to take it back all the way to the beginning and re-listen to our very first episode on Albert Fish. And he's a doozy of a case anyways, but it was before we had video, so it's only audio, but even just listening, you can hear how much our podcast has grown since then. I was so nervous. Like, I wanted to throw up the entire time recording that. Like, I was so nervous. And it's so silly because you can't even see my face back then. It was just my voice, and you can hear it, or at least I can hear it. So we're going to replay that one for you guys and have you hear our beginnings. And we'll be back next week with a new episode. And then the week after that will be our anniversary special, which there is something awesome in store for you guys. So please check it out and check out our Facebook page to enter our giveaway, which will be next week. My daughter wanted to tell a spooky story, and I figured, what the hell? So here's Aurora and her spooky story.
One night there was a spooky haunted house with a witch lived in it.
A witch?
And then she had a pet bat, a pet spooky creepy dog, a creepy pet spider, a creepy pet cat.
A cat? You like cats.
And that cat's collar had red with drawn spider webs for print on it.
Oh, a spider web collar.
And it was half, so the other half was like spider webs, and the other half had like bones.
Oh.
And then the dog's collar just matched it.
Okay.
And then a guy walked to the haunted house because he thought they decorated for Halloween, but they just dressed up as a witch. But nope, it was a real witch.
A real witch. Oh my.
And then when they walked in the house, the witch said, "Get out of my house. You don't be in here. You please get out."
Such a polite witch.
Nope.
Well, she said please.
I think you're not a real witch. You must get out here now. She pushed him out. Push, 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 push. And then she put sticky glue on the sidewalk and he wasn't paying attention and stuck he went. And then somebody found him and pulled him out the sticky glue and cut it up. And then the witch turned him into a witch. And then she was pretty.
She was pretty. Oh, that's nice.
And then she made that other guy look like a stinky old witch.
A stinky old witch, man.
And then somebody helped him and fight the witch and got her magic and turned them back to normal. And then they went home and saw his pet cat Sunny and pet her. It was Daddy.
Daddy was the man all along. Does that make me the stinky old witch?
No.
Oh, good.
She lives so far away.
Far away. Okay. Well, that was a good story.
The end.
Thank you, sweetheart. I'm sure they'll appreciate it. That was Aurora, my 5-year-old, and her spooky story. I hope you guys enjoyed.
A happy ending.
Yep, a happy ending.
And then you say spine-chilling chat.
Oh, spine-chilling chats. So, all the way back from our only audio days, here's our first episode from May 1st, 2024. Enjoy. Bye-bye. Hi to all the spooks out there. I'm Ange.
And I'm Amanda.
We are so excited to be starting this new adventure with you.
We just wanted to really quickly introduce ourselves to you since this is our very first episode of Spine Chilling Chats.
Amanda and I have been best friends for 18 years now, since we met at New Hire Orientation at Lowe's, not a sponsor. We were quick friends and have stuck together over the years, including now working together at the University of Notre Dame.
I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Amanda. I just want to say that I love everything spooky, horror, macabre, anything that you can think of that has to do with that. My favorite season is fall. I love Halloween. My favorite color is orange. And I think that's it for me. I have one son. He's 19, so, I'm old AF.
Not that old.
No, but,
Older than me.
Oh, here we go.
All right, well, I'm Ange. I've always been fascinated by the spooky stuff. I grew up in a Seventh-day Adventist home, so I never got to go trick-or-treating, or they never let me even watch Beetlejuice because it was demonic. Just really kind of strict in that area. My parents had these religious scare tactic videos that explain why Halloween is a pagan holiday filled with child sacrifices and all that gore. I was brought up to believe that ghosts didn't exist, that they were really just demons that took the form of loved ones or other forms to try to trick you. So naturally, after all that, I rebelled a bit, and now I'm just really into spooky stuff.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. I am married. I have been with my husband for 20 years, married for 17. Oof. And we have a beautiful 4-year-old daughter. We live in Southwest Michigan and have always lived there. Other than that, that's me in a nutshell. I don't really have anything cool about me. I'm just
me either. Me. Just a plain old person who loves everything creepy.
Yeah. Just for a little insight on this first episode. It's a tough one to listen to. If you've never heard of it before, trigger warning, there's rape, child abuse, graphic descriptions of torture, mutilation, talk of cannibalism. Really just anything horrible that you can think of is probably in this episode. I know Ash and Lena over at Morbid have done this, and Bailey Sarian of Murder Mystery Makeup has covered it as well.
I love all of them. I listen to all of them.
Yes, me too.
Shout out to you guys.
Yeah, you're awesome. Keep it up. So if you want to hear a different take on it, listen to those ladies. Also, I got a lot of the information for this episode from a book called Deranged by Harold Schechter. I don't know where he got this information from, but it had so much more in-depth stuff than what I could find on the internet anywhere else.
Well, that's good though.
So
That means we'll have some new stuff that people haven't covered.
Yeah. So if you're interested in this case, I highly recommend you read his book because it, like, again, I don't know how he got this information, but it goes a lot deeper than what I could find elsewhere. So I guess let's get into it.
All right. I'm ready.
A sweet baby boy named Hamilton Howard Fish was born in Washington, D.C. on May 19th, 1870. So it's a bit of an older one. Mm-hmm. He was born to a Maine-born captain, Randall Fish, a 32nd degree Mason and Potomac River boat captain that ran from D.C. to Marshall Hall, Virginia, and Ellen Frances Howell Fish, who was born in Ireland. Ellen was 43 years Randall's junior.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So a bit of an age gap there.
A little bit. My God, he had a whole family while she was born.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he did have children prior to their...
They were probably older than her.
Yeah, possibly. She suffered from mental illness and was known to have oral and visual hallucinations.
Oral?
Or like your aura.
Aura. Oh, okay.
Like oral.
I was like,
not oral.
How do you have oral?
Well, I can explain how to have oral to you, but that's a different show.
I'm pretty sure I did.
Randall was 75 at the time of Hamilton's birth, making Ellen only 32. That's icky.
Yes.
That's a big ick right there.
Ugh.
Hamilton was the youngest child and had 3 living siblings, Walter, Annie, and Edwin. Hamilton later on in his teens changed his name to Albert in honor of a brother who had passed away of brain disease after kids have teased Hamilton in school by calling him Ham and Eggs.
Yeah, I would change my name too. Maybe not to my dead brother's name.
No, that's a little weird to me.
But like a different name.
How would your parents feel? Like, I don't think my parents would like me to start calling myself my dead sibling's name.
Yeah, because that'd bring up too much memory.
Yeah, that would be hard. So I'm not sure why he did it, but okay. So to keep it from getting confusing, I'll refer to him as Albert from this point forward. The family had a history of mental illness. His uncle had mania. One of his brothers was confined in a state mental hospital. A paternal half-brother suffered from schizophrenia, and his sister Annie was diagnosed with a mental affliction.
Okay.
Mental
affliction.
So, yeah, I don't know what, but they have a whole bunch of crazy in their family. His father suffered a fatal heart attack on October 16th in 1875 when Albert was only 5. Big surprise that a 80-year-old man, didn't last that long.
Right.
Albert later said this about his father's death and his life afterwards. My father dropped dead October 15th, 1875 in the old Pennsylvania station where President Garfield was shot, and I was placed in St. John's Orphanage in Washington. I was there till I was nearly 9, and that's where I got started wrong. We were unmercifully whipped. I saw boys doing many things they should not have done. I sang in the choir from 1880 to 1884, soprano, at St. John's. I came to New York. I was a good painter, interiors or anything. His mother did, in fact, put him in St. John's Orphanage in Washington, where he was frequently physically and emotionally abused. A sister, as a nun.
Oh, okay.
Or a teacher or whatever they want to call them there, liked to whip the boys frequently and would take 6 at a time, have them strip naked, and have them watch one another get whipped. Albert later recalled that before the age of 7, he had his first sexual feeling during one of these whipping sessions.
Oh.
Being whipped and watching the other boys be whipped and hearing their screams did it for him.
I was playing Barbies at 7. I was not even thinking about that kind of stuff. I didn't even know that stuff existed.
Me neither, but, you know, being whipped and
naked in front of other people.
You know, I can't imagine what that does to a child.
No wonder he's fucked up.
Yeah, a child's mental
I mean
state.
that in like, not like a really super shitty way because people are people, but like, Jesus.
Yeah. Anyway. Back in those times, it was common for parents to place children in orphanages if they could not financially support them. Because that was something else that seemed a little weird to me.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Why she put him in there too?
Like, you didn't have any family or anybody else that could take them in until you got on your feet?
Or be a mother and just keep your child?
Yeah. I don't know. But back then, I guess it was common. Then, if their situations happened to turn around, they could always go back and get their children. But then what if somebody had already adopted them out?
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
I don't know.
Then they go to the person's house and be like, I need my child back. Like, no.
No. I don't know. I didn't look into that.
Huh.
I should have, though. But I don't know. I'll have to look that up later. By 1880, his mother secured a government job and was able to move Albert out of the orphanage. In 1882, at age 12, he began a relationship with a local telegraph boy who introduced him to... Now, I don't know if I'm pronouncing these correct, so...
If anybody out there knows how to pronounce them, let us know.
Just let me know, or just move on. It's not a big deal. But urolognia, which is drinking urine, and coprophagia, which is eating feces.
Oh, yuck.
Yuck.
Ugh.
I'm all about
Bon
trying.
appetit.
I'm all about trying new things, but
No.
not that. Not that.
No.
He began to visit public baths where he could watch other boys undress and spend a great portion of his weekends there. This is also the age that he began writing obscene letters to women whose contact information he found in classified ads. This is a habit he continued throughout his life. He was known for writing his kind of scandalous letters to the ladies.
How would you feel if you got a scandalous letter in the mail?
It ain't no different than a dick pic today.
Oh.
Unsolicited.
Well, I mean,
you know,
it is a little bit different because unless he drew the...
Here's what I think it looks like.
Right.
Actual size may vary.
Right.
By the 1890, at the age of 20, he moved to New York City. He engaged in male prostitution and began molesting and raping boys, mostly less than 6 years old.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a creeper.
I'd kill people for that.
I couldn't imagine. He also made a trip to Brussels where he visited brothels that specialized in oral stuff and sadomasochistic acts. It was there that he practiced oral perversions on the rectums of men and women.
Oh, so he pretty much invented the tossing the salad.
He did a lot. He did a lot. After returning to America, he then began to do these things to his child victims. In 1898, his mother arranged a marriage for him with Anna Mary Hoffman, who was 9 years his junior. So,
Okay,
like father,
that's
like
better.
Well, it was still, that's a big age gap.
It is, but it's not in 43 years.
So she was only 19 years old at the time. They had 6 children together. Albert, another Albert there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they're obsessed with the Albert.
I guess so. Prince Albert.
Anna, Gertrude, Eugene, John, and Henry Fish. I feel sorry for the Gertrude and Eugene.
See, I like names like that. Like
Gertrude. That
I just
that
like old names.
That feels too
Like Maud.
Yeah, too in my mouth. Gertrude.
Gertrude. No, I like that.
Sorry if there's any Gertrudes out there. Your name's beautiful.
We just met the Gertrude in this story.
No, she's fine too. That's just his daughter. She didn't do nothing.
Oh, okay.
In 1903, he was arrested for white-collar crimes, including embezzlement and grand larceny. He was sentenced to prison at Sing Sing Correctional Facility and was eventually released in 1905. He attempted to live a normal life and support his family by working as a house painter, which ended up giving him just an easier means to his victims by giving him access to homes all over, which spread his victims out as well as helping him to evade suspicion.
Of course, of course.
Yeah, so
what better way to be like, hey, welcome to my home, you can murder me now.
Yeah, right. But like he would travel all over to different states. So
I wonder if he went to like all the 50 states just to kill somebody.
He said he's murdered children in almost every state.
Oh, why has it got to be children?
But he's only known for or been known for 3 specific murders.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, who knows if he really did?
Right. He could just be up in his game to be one of the infamous, legendary serial killers.
I don't know.
Pad his little background there.
Yeah. Albert also picked up a male lover who took him to a wax museum, how romantic, where he was fascinated by a bisection of a human penis.
Of course.
And subsequently became obsessed with sexual mutilation.
Oh, here we go.
I couldn't find when this affair took place, but it's believed to have been before 1910.
Okay.
In 1910, Albert met a handsome but intellectually challenged 19-year-old boy named Thomas Kedden. Thomas had bummed his way from the South on a banana train with 5 black men in the boxcar with him. The 6 of them had spent the ride engaging in sexual activities.
Of course they did.
Mostly fellatio and homosexuality.
Like,
we gotta pass the time somehow.
I guess, but why is everything
so
sexual?
Sexual? I know. I've never once been on a train and been like, man,
I wish I could give you some of that.
I wish I could
pass the time.
Yeah.
Not only that, Albert's married, yet he keeps going to men.
Yeah.
So if you're gay, just say you're gay. Like, we're okay with it. I mean, back then it wasn't okay.
Oh, no, it was not okay
back then. But, like, now, we're all for it. Like, be you.
Be you, but don't kill children.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It's unclear how he met Thomas, but he brought him back to his room. Thomas was covered in lice.
Oh.
So Albert purchased a hair remover, so I'm assuming like a shaver.
Probably.
I don't know.
To, like, shave all the hair off. So
I don't know if they had
they had barbers.
Yeah, I don't know. Somehow he shaved Thomas all over, including his pubic hair, and they began a sexual relationship together, which turned dark quickly, performing all kinds of mutual sadistic and masochistic activities. Albert had Thomas whip him, and they would play games where one was the father and the other was the child, or one was the teacher and the other was the student. So
wait. One was a father?
Yeah, they would play act. So
and child.
One would be the father and the other would be the child.
And one would be a teacher and one would be a student.
And they would be whipping each other.
Oh, boy.
So he's got a lot of residual issues from his upbringing in that
clearly.
school. Which is sad, maybe if he got actual help, things would have been different. I mean, he did later on go to quite several different psychologists, and they all said he was fine.
Yeah, we can see how fine he was.
So, I don't know. He forced Thomas to urinate on him because who doesn't like a golden shower? Albert went as far as to drink his urine and eat his feces as well, then forced Thomas to eat and drink those things too.
2 girls, 1 cup. Except for it's men. Ugh.
10 days after the two met. So this is all within 10 days of meeting each other. They're doing all this crazy shit together.
Gosh.
Oh, man. I've never... No. I couldn't even imagine just meeting somebody like, hey, can I poop in your mouth?
Right. Like, how do you even bring that up? Like, when I meet new people, I'm like, I don't say a word. I'm just like staring at them until they say something to me.
Yeah.
That's probably creepy enough. Let alone be like, hey, you know what I like to do? No. I probably wouldn't even ask that after 10 days. I probably wouldn't even ask that after a year. Well, I wouldn't ask that at all, but something of that nature of being weird and abnormal.
Yeah.
Sexual stuff.
Yeah.
Ugh.
10 days after the two met, Albert took Thomas back to a farmhouse and proceeded to torture him for 2 weeks. Albert cut Thomas's... This is where it starts to get descriptive. Dark. So if you don't want to hear this kind of stuff, you might want to skip forward a little bit. Albert cut Thomas's butt cheek with a razor blade and attempted to drink the blood. Eventually, he tied him up, stimulated him to an erection, and began to cut off his penis with a pair of scissors. But stopped before finishing because Thomas had such an agonized look that he couldn't stand.
You think?
Fish later recalled, "I shall never forget his scream or the look he gave me. How fucking sick is that?"
Like,
could you
of course, you're cutting his penis off. What is he going to do? Stand there and just let it happen? Like, oh, this doesn't hurt me at all.
I have no words.
And this dude with these bodily fluids and drinking and what?
I don't know.
Ugh.
I don't know. I just feel bad for this dude. Albert had met the boy in Wilmington, Delaware, and he was tempted to kill him, cut up his body, and bring his remains home with him. He decided not to do so because of the hot temperatures. He feared it would draw too much attention. The stink of it all.
So, wait. Say that again.
So he had planned on killing him.
Yeah.
Cutting him up.
But he just left him there to die.
Taking his meaty bits with him, but was afraid because the temp was so hot that it would spoil and stink and people would notice.
Yeah. I think people would notice that they don't necessarily know that it's human, but they would definitely notice a smell.
Yeah. So instead, Albert cleaned him up and bandaged Thomas's half-amputated penis, left him $10, gave him a kiss, and went back home.
But he gave him $10 while he was tied up, so what is he supposed to do with that $10? It's irrelevant. Here's $10 for your time. Sorry I cut your penis off. And you're still tied up in the barn, so you can't even spend these $10.
Yep. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
When an article was released on the kidnapping in a newspaper, they had gotten Kedden's name wrong. The paper referred to him as Thomas Bedden, whom there was no record of. Albert also specifically mentioned Thomas Kedden from Wilmington, Delaware, when recounting his crimes. Albert continued his abnormal sexual activities. The sick fuck.
Oh, God, here we go.
So, he would take roses, shove them into his penis, look in his mirror to get some sort of sick sexual gratification out of it, and then proceed to eat the rose.
What? What doesn't that hurt?
He
Sticking
likes
it in your urethra?
Yes, he likes the pain.
Ugh.
That's what he gets off on, is the pain.
No. Nothing's going in my urethra.
No. I don't mind a little pain here and there. Like, I have tattoos. But I have piercings.
In the correct places. To me, that's not a correct place.
No. That's
an outie.
In 1917, Albert's wife left him and their children to be with the handyman named John Straub.
Yeah, well, no wonder he's freaking gay.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
Yeah, she probably had her suspicions.
And has had enough.
Although they did have 6 children together, so they must have had
I wonder how that went.
encounters, throughout the years.
At least 6 encounters.
So John had been renting a room from them. So that's how he and Anna Mary met.
Okay.
Anna Mary and Straub fled the home with all the furniture, even the kids' beds and everything like that, while Albert was at work. And
Well, good for her.
The kids were out. But she took from her kids.
Oh, she didn't take the kids with her?
No, she left the kids with
And then
Albert.
took all their shit?
And took everything. The house was empty. When he came home, he found his wife gone, his home empty, and his children depended on him solely. Not much long after she left him, Mrs. Fish and her lover returned to their family home, begging for a place to stay.
Oh,
so they tried to
imagine that.
they tried to make it on their own, and they couldn't.
What a piece of shit.
I couldn't.
I'd be like, nope, you made your bed, no
How do
lie
you
in it.
stoop so low to come crawling back?
With your lover to your husband.
Yeah, and your 6 children who you abandoned.
And took all their shit.
I couldn't.
I couldn't either.
I couldn't.
I'd probably kick him in the face. Get out of here.
Albert said that Anna Mary could stay, but her lover was not welcome.
Good.
No shit. It didn't take Albert long to discover that Straub was hiding out in the attic. Anna Mary had been sneaking food up to him, as well as sneaking up to spend some alone time.
Oh.
Once discovered, he told his estranged wife she could stay, but her lover had to leave. Now,
Again.
no, I'm sorry.
Okay, so that's 3 times now that she's been in this encounter with this guy and has been caught, and he still lets her stay.
Yeah.
The fuck? But then again, he's fucked up and he's molesting and killing children, so.
Well, plus he probably just doesn't want to be the one to have to take care of these 6 kids by himself.
That's true too.
He's
got better things to do, apparently.
My sister has 6 kids, and I can imagine it's a lot.
We have one for a reason.
Yes.
One and done.
Yeah. Both Mrs. Fish and Straub then left. The Fish children never saw their mother place a foot in the family home again. After this, his mental health deteriorated quickly. He suffered from auditory hallucinations and believed St. John the Apostle was instructing him to harm children and himself. Over the course of the next few years, Albert continued molesting and hurting young boys. In 1919, he stabbed a mentally handicapped boy in Washington, D.C. He became obsessed with cannibalism and started eating raw meat.
Of course he did, because why not add to everything else that you've drank and eaten?
Yeah. This dude, he must just be hungry.
Right.
Like he's eating
clearly
shit.
he's not feeding.
He's eating people. He's eating raw meat over here, eating roses that came out of his penis.
Ugh. Drinking blood.
Somebody get this guy a hamburger. Occasionally feeding raw meat to his children as well.
Like people meat?
No. Well, I don't know. It didn't specify. It just said
Raw
he
meat.
started eating raw meat.
Okay.
So let's hope it's
Just raw
a
meat.
steak.
Yeah. Hamburger.
I don't know about raw hamburger, but I do.
You.
I wouldn't eat raw hamburger.
No, you do.
Steak?
Yeah.
Well, I eat medium rare.
Which still has blood in it?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's the only way to eat steak.
Well, I don't eat steak. And if I did, I wouldn't have any blood in it.
Oh, no, that's the best part. That's where the flavor's at.
Ugh.
Okay. He became obsessed with the eating raw meat and cannibalism. Then he created his kill kit, which he referred to as his implements of hell, which consisted of a meat cleaver, a butcher knife, and a small handsaw. He targeted...
All the essentials.
Yeah, I keep it in my purse.
Right.
He targeted African American boys and those who were mentally disabled, people he thought would not be missed, which is messed up.
That
in
is
itself.
messed up because everybody should be missed. Like, that's a person.
Yeah.
That hurts my heart. He thinks that they wouldn't be missed.
He didn't care.
Oh.
On July 11th, 1924, 8-year-old Beatrice Keel was playing alone on her family's farm when a gray mustached stranger offered her a nickel if she would join him into the woods and show...
nickel.
Yeah. Hey, a nickel was like 88 cents back then.
Yeah, that's true too.
If she would join him into the woods and show him where to find wild rhubarb. Her mother, Alice, luckily noticed him lurking about at the right moment and chased him off, saving the life of her 8-year-old daughter. Later that night, Albert returned to the Keel farm and slept in the barn. He was discovered sleeping and promptly was awoken and chased off the property by Hans Keel, Beatrice's father. I wouldn't be chasing, I'd be knocking him out and calling the police.
Right.
This is twice I've seen you on my property, and one time you were trying to take my daughter. No. I'm not going to chase you off. I'm going to call
That requires a shotgun. I'm just saying.
I don't know if I go,
I would.
I don't know.
I would do anything to protect my child. And you're on my property. That's trespassing. So I have every right to defend myself and my children. Boom. Right in the ass.
I'd probably just kick him in the balls. But he'd probably like that, though.
Exactly.
So luckily, Beatrice, she didn't die. She didn't get taken. She was okay because her parents were on it.
Good. Somebody's paying attention somewhere.
Yeah. 3 days later, the body of 8-year-old Frances McDonald was found brutally assaulted and strangled to death in the woods that adjoined Keel's property. The young resident of Staten Island never returned home after a day spent playing catch with his friends. After a brief search, the boy's body was found hanging from a tree by his suspenders. He had been strangled with his suspenders after suffering sexual assault. Albert later admitted to attempting to castrate the boy, but took off when he heard people approaching. The crime earned Fish the moniker the Gray Man, after McDonald's friends reported seeing a man with a thick gray mustache and shaggy gray hair. He was reported as looking faded and gray. The murder of Frances McDonald remained unsolved until many years later.
Oh,
That's so sad.
it is sad.
Having to go years not knowing
what happened to your child?
Yeah, who did that to my baby? Because that's a baby. That's an 8-year-old baby.
That's like my nephews are 7. Like I couldn't imagine stuff like that happening to them.
And it's so hard when you read stories like this not to
associate it
with your own personal.
Yeah.
Like the next one, Billy Gaffney that we're going to talk about. He was 4. That's my baby. My baby's 4, and like it gives me chills. It just.
How can you do that to such an innocent life?
I couldn't imagine. How could you hurt a baby like that? It breaks my heart. In a small rundown apartment in Brooklyn lived the Gaffney family. In the evening of February 11th, 1927, 4-year-old Billy Gaffney was playing with his 3-year-old neighbor, Billy Beaton. A 12-year-old neighbor kid, Johnny McNiff, was watching his infant sister on the top floor of the apartment and heard the 2 younger boys playing. He decided to join them since his little sister was asleep in her crib. A few minutes later, though, the baby started crying, so Johnny returned to his apartment to take care of her. He got her back to sleep and went back down to join the 2 little boys again, not even 3 minutes later, and they were nowhere to be found.
Both of them?
Both of them. At that moment, Billy Beaton's father, who was in charge of his children while his wife was in the hospital, came out of the apartment and found Johnny in the hallway looking confused. Johnny explained to Mr. Beaton what had happened. Mr. Beaton ran to the Gaffney's apartment, but the boys were not there. He was afraid that the boys may have run outside into the street. He ran down the 2 flights of stairs and out the door calling their names, but they were nowhere in sight. With Johnny by his side, the 2 of them began searching the building. When they reached the top floor, Mr. Beaton gave a sigh of relief as he found his son, alone by the ladder that leads to the roof. When he asked his 3-year-old son, "Where were you? Where did you go?" Little Billy Beaton sounded excited, telling him, "We were on the roof." Pointing up overhead, "We saw chimneys and buildings and steamships." Mr. Beaton then saw that the scuttle, which had been open to the rooftop, had been shoved aside. This confused him as the tenants of the building were very careful to keep the wooden hatch closed at all times, since a lot of them had young children. Mr. Beaton then asked his son where Billy Gaffney was, to which the little boy explained that the boogeyman took him.
Oh, God.
The next day, 25 detectives and patrolmen had been assigned to the case.
The next day?
Yeah.
They didn't do anything that night?
Well, they called the police, but they're just saying the next day,
Okay,
after he wasn't found anywhere. They had 25 detectives and patrolmen assigned to the case. The kidnapping made no sense to Sergeant Joseph, who was in command of the case. The Gaffneys were extremely poor, and at this time, children of the wealthy would be kidnapped and held for ransom. But with the Gaffneys being poor, it would be foolish to kidnap their child, as they had no money to pay. It was beyond comprehension that someone would take a child for a reason other than monetary gain.
How is that?
Like
There's no other reason that they can take a child.
Not in this time. In this time, it was, people were hard on money, so they were exploiting one another by taking their children for ransom.
Nobody ever thought that it could have been something else?
It wasn't common back then. It wasn't what they immediately went to. It was sad.
Yeah.
The sergeant assumed the boy had wandered out into the street and fallen into some sort of trouble, thinking maybe he wandered and got stuck in one of the many nearby factories, or more grimly, made his way down to the Gowanus Canal. I don't know if I said that correctly, but
let us know if you know.
Located less than 5 blocks from his home and fell in. Sergeant Joseph enlisted the help of over 350 volunteers, which is a ridiculous amount, so they could cover quite a bit of area. But it was made up of policemen, neighbors, Boy Scouts, and school children to help search the area for the little boy. A police scout was dispatched to the canal. They spent the day dredging its muddy bottom with grappling hooks, hoping to catch his body.
I mean, I know that the kid is, they're assuming he's dead down at the bottom, but grappling hooks? They couldn't find something more
gentle.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't have scuba gear. Things were different.
Yeah, I keep forgetting that it is back in that day.
But Billy was not found. The only witness they had was that of 3-year-old who described the boogeyman as a thin old man with gray hairs growing on his upper lip. As the weeks went by, the Gaffneys began to receive multiple cruel letters from different people claiming horrible things. One containing a crudely drawn map of where the corpse of Billy Gaffney was buried, to another one that stated, "I didn't mean to kill him, God forgive me." Another letter stated that his corpse had been stuffed into a carton and left in an empty apartment. The police followed up on every lead, and they all were found to be false. Could you imagine? Your baby is missing, and then you're getting all these letters saying, "Oh, your baby's dead. It's over here. His body's here."
You have hope to find them, and it's not true.
And it's not true.
It's heartbreaking.
Like, these people are sick fucks. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Who would do that?
Who would want to take credit for that?
And to do that to a parent who's, you know, in the most nightmarish situation of their entire life.
Yeah.
And to just
fuck with them.
Fuck with them for no reason. It's...
And I sure as hell am not going to be like, hey, I'm going to take credit for that murder. No. Who does that?
Fucked up people do that. One informant reported that Billy had been stolen by a bereaved mother and was living safely in Harlem. Sorry, it's tough. It's emotional.
It is.
The only solid lead that police received came from a trolley car conductor named Anthony Barone, who, after a period of struggling with whether to get involved or not, finally decided to state that he had witnessed on the evening of February 11th, shortly after 7 p.m., an elderly man with a heavy gray mustache boarded Barron's train just 2 blocks away from the Gaffney's apartment. With this man was a little boy, dressed in a gray shirt and blue pants, just like what Billy was wearing.
Why did he wait so long to say something?
He didn't want to get involved. Though the sun had set at 5:30 p.m. and the evening was chilly, the boy did not have a coat or a hat on. The boy had cried continuously from the time he was led on board until the moment he left, despite the effort of the old man to hush him. According to Barone, I don't know how you say it, before they got off the car, the old man asked him if they could get a ferry from here to Staten Island. Barron explained that the best way to reach Staten Island was to take Hamilton Avenue ferry to the Battery and then the municipal ferry to St. George. Then the old man, who seemed very jumpy, left with the little boy still crying and went to the opposite direction than what the conductor instructed. Police now believe that Billy was indeed kidnapped. No shit.
You think? You didn't believe that before when he didn't come home?
On July 7th, 1929, more than 2 years after Billy's disappearance, an article appeared in the New York Times. Mrs. Gaffney had been taken to Bellevue Hospital with severe chest pains. She was never a heavy woman and had lost 46 pounds since that terrible day. So she's just grieving and wasting away because of her grief, not knowing what happened to her baby. Besides heart trouble, she also developed an infection in her tear glands from her chronic sleeplessness and uncontrollable bouts of weeping. She was released after several weeks, but her grief consumed her life. On special holidays, she always sets an extra place for Billy. I know he will come back someday, she told reporters who visited her apartment at Christmas time in 1930. There is nothing a mother can do but hope. For the rest of her life, she would never get over the loss of her son.
Oh, I wouldn't either.
Even after the truth came to light years later, she refused to accept it. The Billy Gaffney case is most likely what made the world deem him the Brooklyn vampire, along with the boogeyman. Here's the transcript of the letter that Albert Fish sent to his attorney in regards to Billy Gaffney. Just a trigger warning, this is very graphic in its description of child abuse, mutilation, and murder. So please skip over these next few minutes if you don't have a strong stomach, because this is truly horrific. I brought him to the Riker Avenue dumps. There is a house that stands alone, not far from where I took him. I took the Gaffney boy there, stripped him naked and tied his hands and feet, and gagged him with a piece of dirty rag I picked out of the dump. Then I burned his clothes, threw his shoes in the dump. Then I walked back and took the trolley to 59th Street at 2 a.m. and walked home from there. So he left this boy naked, tied up, gagged overnight, and then went home. The next day, about 2 p.m., I took tools, his implements of hell, a good heavy cat o' nine tail, homemade, with short handle, cut one of my belts in half, slit these half in 6 strips about 8 inches long. I whipped his bare behind till the blood ran from his legs. I cut off his ears, nose, slit his mouth from ear to ear, gouged out his eyes. He was dead then. I stuck the knife in his belly and held my mouth to his body and drank his blood. I picked up 4 old potato sacks and gathered a pile of stones. Then I cut him up. I had a grip with me. I put his nose, ears, and a few slices of his belly in the grip. Then I cut him through the middle of his body, just below his belly button. Then through his legs about 2 inches below his behind. I put this in my grip with a lot of paper. I cut off the head, feet, arms, hands, and the legs below the knee. This I put in sacks weighed with stones, tied the ends, and threw them into the pools of slimy water you will see along the road going to North Beach. Water is 3 to 4 feet deep. They sank at once. I came home with my meat. I had the front of his body I liked best, his monkey and peewees, and a nice little fat behind to roast in the oven and eat. I made a stew out of his ears, nose, pieces of his face and belly. I put onions, carrots, turnips, celery, salt, and pepper. It was good. Then I split the cheeks of his behind open, cut off his monkey and his peewees, and washed them first. I put strips of bacon on each cheek of his behind and put it in the oven. Then I picked 4 onions, and when meat had roasted about a quarter hour, I poured about a pint of water over it for gravy and put in the onions. At frequent intervals, I basted his behind with a wooden spoon, so the meat would be nice and juicy. In about 2 hours, it was nice and brown, cooked through. I never ate any roast turkey that tasted half as good as his sweet, fat little behind did. I ate every bit of the meat in about 4 days. His little monkey was as sweet as a nut, but his peewees I could not chew. I threw them in the toilet.
What in the fuck?
Like he's writing a fucking cookbook here, giving you the recipe for...
What a sick fuck.
That poor little boy. It breaks my heart.
That's there's no words to even say to that.
Yeah. Truly fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a tough one. All right. Well, he didn't stop after that.
Oh,
Of course, There's more. 18-year-old Edward Budd, determined to make something of himself, placed an ad in the newspaper looking for work on Friday, May 25th, 1928, to be printed for Sunday's edition of Situations Wanted in the New York World. At this time, it was common to post ads looking for work along with your contact information, including your address. So his ad of young man, 18, wishes position in country, Edward Budd, 406 West 15th Street, wasn't an odd thing to do. He was the oldest of 5 children. Edward, Albert Jr., another Albert, must have been a fucking common name, George, Grace, and baby Beatrice.
See, I like that name too.
Beatrice? Yeah, because you could do B.
I just like old names like Evelyn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I have an Aurora. That's an old name.
Yeah. Mine's old too.
Yours is biblical old.
Biblical old. For anybody wanting to know, my son's name is Ezra. That's what we're referring to.
So, they all lived
in the seven of them total, all lived in this cramped little apartment in Manhattan with their parents, another Albert, because we got Albert Jr., and Delia. The apartment was overheated and stuffy in the winter and unbearably hot in the summer, in those pre-air conditioning days. Edward was determined to spend the summer outside of the city, enjoying fresh air and working in the country. Around 3:30 in the afternoon on Monday, May 28th, 1928, just the day after Edward's ad was printed, Frank Howard arrived at the Bud store stop with a job offer for good old Eddie. He was an elderly man with gray hair and a gray mustache.
What a coincidence.
Huh. He was dressed in a dark suit and black felt hat. In the darkness of the hallway, he looked impressively well-to-do. He stated that he would like to have Edward come work with him at his farm. Mrs. Budd told her youngest daughter, 5-year-old Beatrice, to run around the corner to the Corman apartment and tell Edward to come home immediately. As she passed by Frank Howard, he grabbed her by the wrist and told her, "You remind me of my granddaughter. What do they call you?" She very shyly replied, "Beatrice," after a moment. Frank then reached into his pocket and came out with a shiny coin. "Here's a 5-cent piece for your trouble." He placed the coin in her hand, and off she went. Mrs. Budd offered him some lemonade while they waited for Edward to arrive. She turned on the table lamp and could now see that his suit was a bit shabbier than she first thought. Actually, a navy blue suit with the cuffs of the jacket frayed and the pants worn to a shine. He still looked respectable enough, and especially when she saw the large diamond ring he wore on his pinky.
Because that right there is...
He's got money, man.
Yeah, that shows wealth.
Yep.
Diamond pinky ring.
You know it. Beatrice soon returned with Edward and his buddy Willie Corman. The old man proceeded in telling the story that for many years he worked as an interior decorator in Washington, D.C. He had done well for himself, had a good marriage, and 6 wonderful children. But then his eyesight started to go. So he took the money he made from his business and made his lifelong dream come true of purchasing a nice little farm out in Farmingdale in Long Island. His wife unfortunately hated living in the country, and within a year abandoned him along with their 6 children. Luckily, though, he and the children made it through.
Another one?
Another what?
Mother abandoning her children?
Yes.
What is going on?
You do realize that Frank is Albert? No?
Yeah.
Well, he's giving a story, a backstory of Frank Howard.
Oh, I get it
So
now.
he's going to have some similarities to his
I'm
real
like,
life.
Jesus Christ, what's wrong with these women?
No.
Gosh.
And why do they all have 6 kids?
6 kids and they abandoned them.
No.
Must be the time.
No. One of his sons was even a cadet at West Point, so he was very proud. His farm ended up doing well, too, with 300 chickens, half a dozen milk cows, and that provided him with a steady income. He employed a full-time Swedish cook and 5 farmhands. What a nice farm he's got.
Right.
One of his most dependable workers decided to leave, so he was looking to replace him. He claimed that Edward's ad had appeared at the most opportune time. Frank offered to pay him $15 per week, which is the equivalent to about $265 today. This included room and board, though, so that was actually a pretty good deal.
Yeah. Very generous.
Yeah. Edward was looking forward to having a job and providing for his family, and Frank Howard even offered a job to Edward's friend Willie, who was with him.
Oh.
2 for 1. He stated his business. he stated he has a business arrangement out in New Jersey and would return for the boys on Saturday afternoon with a car to drive them out to Farmingdale. Eddie and Willie spent most of Saturday inside the Buds' apartment waiting for Frank Howard to arrive. Late in the afternoon, they received a telegram from Mr. Howard that said, "Been over in New Jersey, call in morning." The boys were disappointed but shrugged it off as, what is one more day of waiting? Even though Frank had delayed his plans until Sunday for his own reasons, he too had been impatient for the week to go by, because Frank wasn't really Frank Howard, spoiler alert, but actually Albert Fish. Although Albert was disappointed in the boys' appearances, he decided to go ahead with his plans, as he wasn't in any position to pick and choose his victims. The first thing Albert did was on Tuesday, the day after his visit with the Buds. He went to a shop called Sobel's on 74th Street and 2nd Avenue to purchase 3 items he would need. Spending less than $5, he carried them back to his apartment, unwrapped them, and placed them underneath his bed. He later regretted unwrapping them because on Thursday, he invited 12-year-old Cyril Quinn, who was playing box ball on the sidewalk with another little boy, inside for some lunch. For several months, Albert had been working on earning Cyril's trust by giving him small gifts such as candy, ice cream, coins, and just, kind of warming him up.
I mean, at least he did that much to the child.
Yeah, so just
nice
snatching
to him
him
for a minute.
He had a moment of inspiration when he saw the boys and decided to test out his new purchase.
I guess tools.
Yeah. While waiting for sandwiches, the boys wrestled on Albert's bed because that's not weird.
Not at all.
The mattress.
Who doesn't wrestle on beds with
on
strangers'
beds? Yeah. The mattress overturned, revealing Albert's implements of hell: the knife, handsaw, and cleaver.
Oh, imagine that.
The boys fled for their home in fear of their lives. Once again, Albert's mission to kill and consume a child had failed. This caused him to up his game a little. Sunday, June 3rd, around 10:30 a.m., Frank headed to the Budd apartment, cradled in his arm a bundle tightly wrapped in a piece of red and white striped canvas. A small white enamel pail he had purchased the previous morning from a peddler dangled from his other hand. On his way, he made several stops. At a German delicatessen, he had his pail filled with fresh pot cheese, which I had to look this up because I didn't know what pot cheese was.
Yeah, what
I
is
ain't
it?
fancy. It's a soft, crumbly cheese between cottage cheese and a farmer cheese, which I don't know what farmer cheese is either. It's somewhat dry and crumbly, but with a neutral, creamy texture, and it's very high in protein. It is most similar to the Mexican queso blanco.
Okay.
Across the street at a fruit and veggie stand, he purchased a small carton of plump strawberries. He then stopped by a newspaper stand a block away from the Buds, fumbling with all his packages while trying to fish out a coin from his pocket. The newspaper man asked if he could manage carrying all of that and the newspaper. Frank, aka Albert Fish, then said he wasn't too sure and asked if he could leave behind his canvas-covered package and pick it up in about an hour or so. The newsman said sure and took the package and placed it under his stand. A few minutes before 11 a.m., Frank knocked on the door of the Buds' apartment. He gave Mrs. Budd the cheese and berries, saying that they were for her. He told her, "You'll never taste creamier pot cheese than that, I can guarantee it, nor sweeter strawberries." Mr. Budd asked if they came from his farm. Frank said, "That's right," happily. "Those products come direct from my farm." Frank said he hoped the boy wasn't too disappointed about him not coming yesterday. He told Mr. Budd that he had been over in New Jersey buying horses. What a farm.
Man.
300 chickens, half a dozen cow, now horses. He makes cheese, he grows strawberries. Man, he's got a Swedish chef.
He's got it all.
What a farm. What a farm. He was about to sit on the sofa when he stopped as if he thought of something, then said, "That message I sent, do you know if the boy threw it away?" Mr. Budd told him no. Eddie had stuck it over on the mantelpiece. Frank nodded, walked over to the mantel, and picked up the message, glanced at it for a moment, then slipped it into his pocket of his suit jacket, then walked back to the sofa and carefully lowered himself onto the cushion.
That's weird.
Yeah, like why would you
Why
would you take it? But remember that for later.
Okay.
Eddie was supposed to be home by noon, and Frank was invited to join the family for lunch. During his visit, Howard spotted Edward's young daughter, Gracie. He told her to come over to him, then asked her lots of questions about her school and friends. He told her how slender and pretty she was. He then pulled out a big wad of money and said, "Let's see how good of a counter you are." The stack of money was so thick she had a hard time holding it. She counted $92.50, which would be over $1,600 today. Like, who just carries around $1,600? I sure don't. I don't ever have any cash.
16 cents I carry around.
Me neither. I got a card, but good luck in seeing if it has any money on it.
Right.
He told her what a bright girl she was and gave her the 50 cents. He told her to go buy some candy for her and her sister. He then told Edward and his friend that he wouldn't be taking him right at the present. Frank then explained that he had received a letter from his sister yesterday and has to attend his niece's birthday party, and he is obligated to attend it. He then took $2 from his stack and gave it to Edward. He said it was for him, Willie, and some of the boys to go take in a moving picture, so go see a movie.
Okay.
Then later on in the evening, after the party, he would return and take them with him on his way home. By that time, Grace and Beatrice returned home with their candy. Then he acted as if something just occurred to him. He wondered if Grace might want to come with him to the birthday party.
Huh.
He told them that there would be lots of kids and games to play. It would be quite the bash. He told Mr. and Mrs. Budd that he would take good care of Grace and bring her back no later than 9 p.m. This put them in quite the predicament. Not wanting to cause trouble for their son with his new employer, and not wanting to seem like they didn't trust him. And with Frank, he had seemed gracious. He had given their kids, Beatrice, he gave her money the other day. Now he gave Gracie money. He just gave Edward money. He brought cheese and fruit.
It's all too good to be true. Like,
yeah.
Nowadays, I'd be like, no
red
way.
flag. Red flag. So they didn't want to mess anything up for their son.
I don't care if my son got fired for that. Fuck you. You're not taking my daughter to
anywhere.
a birthday party.
Anywhere.
Yeah, anywhere. You're not taking my daughter, period.
Yeah. So the Budds gave 10-year-old Gracie permission to attend the party. I can imagine what they must felt like after. That evening, Frank did not return and Gracie vanished. The family reported her disappearance to the local police and an investigation began. No leads were discovered, partially because Frank Howard didn't exist. The address for the party that Frank had given them didn't exist either. Fake letters came pouring in along with false sightings, just like with the Gaffneys,
Yep.
There's a lot of cruel people
Again,
out there.
Sick fucks out there taking credit.
Yeah. As the weeks went by, the trail grew colder. Years passed by with no Grace to be found. Spring of 1929, Albert mailed a series of obscene letters to women whose names he had gotten from various sources. Some names were secured from from matrimonial agencies. Others came from newspaper classifieds, which he studied rapidly in his constant search for innocent prey. In his letters, Fish often presented himself as a successful Hollywood producer, ready to offer large sums of money as well as his undying affection to women willing to perform certain services either for himself or at times for fictitious teenage son, generally identified as Bobby.
So he's trying to get his son laid. Or
Not quite. The letters were a delirium of violent sadomasochistic fantasies involving some of Fish's favorite activities. I wish you could see me now, Fish wrote in a typical passage. I'm sitting in a chair naked. The pain is across my back, just over my behind. When you strip me naked, you will see the most perfect form. Yours, sweet honey of my heart. I can taste your sweet piss, your sweet shit. You must pee-pee in a glass, and I shall drink every drop of it as you watch me. Tell me when you want to do number 2. I will take you over my knees, pull up your clothes, take down your drawers, and hold my mouth to your sweet honey fat ass, and eat your sweet peanut butter as it comes out fresh and hot. That is how they do it in Hollywood. 1. Okay.
hold on. I gotta get my composure because that made me like I got vomit. I got vomit. Like my eyes are watering.
Like
So gross.
okay. Your pee-pee?
I can't. I can't.
Are you okay?
No.
You need a sip?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
You want some pee-pee
Ugh.
in a glass? Who talks like that?
He does.
That's like that's how a child would describe it, though. She's literally over here gagging. Okay, we're gonna move on. Please don't throw up on our show. A Mrs. E. Solarid promptly turned the letter over to the police. Though Fish had signed it with the fake name Robert Fisk, he had included a return address in the hope that the recipient would warm to his advances and respond in kind. What a dummy.
I'm not going to give you my real name, but I'll give you my address.
Yeah. Stupid. He was picked up shortly before Thanksgiving, and after an examination by a court social worker who diagnosed the old man's mental condition as questionable, Fish was delivered to Bellevue for psychiatric observation. While in there, he mailed a letter to his eldest daughter, Miss Anna Collins. Why do none of you write to me? I am the only one here who does not receive a letter or a visitor. I have written to you, to Gertrude, Jean, Henry. None of you answer. I am 3 weeks. Now, Annie, do this for your poor old father. Do write a letter to Dr. Gregory, Bellevue Hospital, as soon as you get this. Ask him in God's name to send me back to court. You know, the sooner I get my sentence, the sooner I am back home. Don't fail me now. Love to you all from Papa. And after about 30 days there, they decided that he was not insane. How the fuck?
And he just admitted to all of that. And they...
Well, it was... he got arrested for the letters.
That was for the letters.
That was just
that
for
was,
the letters.
Wait, wasn't that after he was busted and he did the confession?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. This is...
Still before the confession.
Yep.
Okay.
This is just for these letters soliciting services.
How does that not prove that you're insane when you're writing about bodily functions and eating them?
He's just kinky.
Okay.
I don't know. Judge Coleman put Albert on probation and released him into the custody of his daughter Anna. In 1931, he was arrested again for another disturbing letter he sent. Midsummer 1934, Albert's son, Albert Jr., who was then 35 years old, returned home unexpectedly to the apartment that he shared with his father. Albert Jr. was 35 years old, not Albert. Albert was older.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure how old at this point, but his father was often home during the day, so Albert Jr. wasn't surprised to hear noises from inside the apartment as he opened the front door. What did surprise him was the source of the sounds. They were coming not from his father's bedroom, but from his own. And the sounds themselves were very strange thuds, slaps, and muffled cries. He walked quietly down the corridor and peered inside his room. The window shades had been drawn, but enough light filtered through the fabric for Albert Jr. to see clearly. The old man was standing in the center of the room, completely nude, stroking his swollen member with one hand, while the other he reached behind and smacked himself with a nail-studded wooden paddle.
Oh.
Wild-eyed and panting, he jumped and cried out with every blow. His skin was soaked with sweat, and his face looked almost as red as his raw and bloody buttocks. Lost in some unimaginable ecstasy, the old man continued his self-flagellation, completely oblivious to his son's presence. For a few moments, Albert Jr. stood there and stared, too paralyzed by embarrassment and dismay to say or do anything. Then, shaken and confused, he backed away from the door, retrieved his toolbox from the hallway closet, and crept out of the apartment.
As one should.
Yeah.
When they see that. And
Yeah.
why the fuck is he in his son's room and not his own room?
I don't know. But yeah, I would have backed up like, I'm not opening
I probably would
that.
have banged on the door and been like, what the fuck are you doing? And then take off running.
Hand check.
Ugh.
But, oh, man.
This dude.
He's fucked up.
Yeah.
He is fucked up. As disconcerting as this episode was for Albert Jr., it was not the first time that he had come upon evidence of his father's weird proclivities. For as long as he could remember, his father had displayed certain extreme peculiarities of behavior. He clearly recalled the time back in 1922, for instance, when he and his brothers, Henry and Jean, had been kicking around a football outside the old cottage they used to rent up in Worthington. Albert Jr. had just bent down to catch a lock kick, and as he straightened up to boot the ball back to Henry. I don't do sports, y'all. He caught sight of his father standing in an apple orchard on the little hill behind the bungalow. The old man had his right hand raised high in the air and was shouting something over and over. Albert Jr. strained to listen. The old man was shouting, "I am Christ."
Oh my
And as for his paddle business, Albert Jr. had known about it for at least 5 years. Since an evening in 1929, the old man had gone off for the day, leaving his son with a few dollars to buy food. Albert Jr., who was unemployed at the time, had spent most of the afternoon at the movies, returning home around 6 to prepare supper. He was standing at the kitchen sink when his foot struck something concealed in the shadowy corner behind the pipes, something that made an odd-sounding clatter. Albert Jr. crouched to take a closer look. There, leaning against the wall, were a pair of crude homemade paddles, each about 2 feet in length and bristling with finishing nails, which protruded out about 1.5 inches from the wood. The nails seemed stained with dark paint. Reaching under the sink, Albert Jr. removed one of these strange instruments and took a look at it closely. And it wasn't paint, it was blood, dried on blood. So he's not even cleaning his little toys, which is nasty. You're going to get infected.
Yeah. Well, back then, they didn't really have a lot of medication, so.
Yeah. Not sanitary. Like, that's the least of his problems here.
Right, clearly.
In 1934, 6 years after the disappearance of Grace, The Budd family received a letter with a description of the mutilation and murder of little Gracie. The note matched the handwriting from the original note sent to them earlier. So, this is the letter he wrote. My dear Mrs. Budd, in 1894, a friend of mine shipped as a deck hand on a steamer Tacoma, Captain John Davis. They sailed from San Francisco to Hong Kong, China. On arriving there, he and 2 others went ashore and got drunk. When they returned, the boat was gone. At that time, there was a famine in China. Meat of any kind was from $1 to $3 a pound. So great was the suffering among the very poor that all children under 12 were sold to butchers to be cut up and sold for food in order to keep others from starving.
Oh my.
A boy or girl under 14 was not safe in the street. You could go in any shop and ask for steak chops or stew meat. Part of the naked body of a boy or girl would be brought out and just what you wanted cut from it. A boy or girl's behind, which is the sweetest part of the body, and sold as veal cutlet, brought the highest price. John said stayed there so long he acquired a taste for human flesh. On his return to New York, he stole 2 boys, one 7, one 11, took them to his home, stripped them naked, tied them in a closet, and burned everything they had on. Several times every day and night, he spanked them, tortured them, to make their meat good and tender. First, he killed the 11-year-old boy because he had the fattest ass and, of course, the most meat on it. Every part of his body was cooked and eaten except head, bones, and guts. He was roasted in the oven, all of his ass boiled, broiled, fried, stewed. The little boy was next, went the same way. At the time I was living at 409 East 100th Street, rear, right side. He told me so often how good human flesh was, I made up my mind to taste it. On Sunday, June the 3rd, 1928, I called on you at 406 West 15th Street, brought you pot cheese, strawberries. We had lunch. Grace sat on my lap and kissed me. I made up my mind to eat her, on the pretense of taking her to a party. You said yes, she could go. I took her to an empty house in Westchester I had already picked out. When we got there, I told her to remain outside. She picked wildflowers. I went upstairs and stripped all of my clothes off. I knew if I did not, I would get her blood on them. When all was ready, I went to the window and called her. Then I hid in the closet until she was in the room. When she saw me all naked, she began to cry and tried to run downstairs. I grabbed her and she said she would tell her mama. First, I stripped her naked. How she did kick, bite, and scratch. I choked her to death, then cut her in small pieces so I could take my meat to my rooms, cook, and eat it. How sweet and tender her little ass was, roasted in the oven. It took me 9 days to eat her entire body. I did not fuck her, though. I could have, had I wished. She died a virgin. That's what. That's what.
Thank you.
That's what he sent to her mother.
I appreciate that. What the fuck?
During the time of the investigation and before the letter was received, another child vanished. The letter that was received by the Budd family was investigated and was found to contain an emblem of the New York Private Chauffeurs Benevolent Association, the NYPCBA. All of the members were required to obtain a handwriting test for comparison to the letters from Howard. A janitor came forward to admit that he had taken some sheets of paper and left them in his old rooming house. The landlady was able to confirm that an old man, matching the description, had lived there for 2 months and had only checked out a few days earlier. The former tenant was identified as Albert H. Fish. The landlady also mentioned that he wanted her to hold a letter that would be arriving from his son. Detectives intercepted the letter at the post office and were contacted by the landlady that he would be coming to get his letter. The lead detective was able to capture Albert Fish and charge him with murder. March 29th, 1935, while in prison, Albert slashed his abdomen with 2 pieces of bone in his prison cell that he took.
I was like, wait a minute.
He had pork chops for dinner, and they left the bone in.
Oh,
so he filed it down on the concrete floor, so they were sharp, so he could slash his stomach.
Okay.
Because he's a sick fuck and he likes pain.
Yeah.
And he wasn't getting it anywhere else. The warden said that he inflicted serious wounds by doing that. Keeper Daniel Maloney found the aged convict mutilating himself on January 16th, 1936. And then he was executed by means of electric chair at the age of 65. So there are some other suspected victims, but these have not been confirmed were actually Albert. They're just ones that sounded like he could have been the one responsible. There was a Emma Richardson, age 5, on October 3rd, 1926. There was a Yetta Abramowitz, who was 12, on May 14th, 1927, in the Bronx. She was strangled and beaten on the roof of a 5-story apartment house in the Bronx. She died in the hospital shortly after she was found. An unidentified man matching Fish's description was sighted trying to lure several local boys and girls into dark hallways and alleys on the date around her death. Emil Alling, age 4, July 3rd, 1930. Some of these don't have actual stories. They're just the names of who they think.
Suspected victims.
Robin Jane Liu, age 6, May 2nd, 1931. Mary Ellen O'Connor, age 16, February 15th, 1932, in Queens, New York.
That's my birthday.
Yeah.
Not 42.
Same year, too.
I was going to say I'm old, but I'm not that old.
Her mutilated body was found in the woods close to a house that Fish had been painting. Benjamin Collings, age 17, December 15th, 1932. And this is like his trial here. Fish was brought to trial for Grace Budd. After the 10-day trial, he pled insanity, saying he heard voices from God that told him to commit these crimes, because that makes sense. The plot thickens. It isn't uncommon for people with certain mental illnesses to have a religious obsession. Court psychiatrists realized that he was one of those individuals, approaching his kills and crimes through a twisted biblical lens. Psychiatrist, if I could speak.
Like you said, words are hard.
Words are hard, man. Frederick Wortham, hired for the trial, discovered Fish had an obsession with religion and was basing his actions in a twisted interpretation of Scripture. Genesis 22:1-24. The Scripture reads the story of Abraham, who almost had to sacrifice his son Isaac. God spared Isaac by sending a ram in a bush to be sacrificed instead. While Fish didn't sacrifice or harm any of his sons, he seemingly believed that sacrificing a young boy would in some way make up for his wrongdoings. And if God wasn't going to accept it, it wouldn't be allowed to happen. The cannibalism part came in as a twisted form of communion.
Oh, so that's taking in the body of Christ.
Yeah.
Because if God didn't want it to happen, it wouldn't happen.
Right. Yep. Makes sense.
All of it makes sense.
Yep. Not crazy here.
No.
Court psychologists determined that he was insane, a psychiatric phenomenon, having almost 12 sexual fetishes that had never been noted in any historical, medical, or legal records.
Oh, so he's the first.
Yeah. Lucky him.
Right.
Fish was sentenced to death after his trial. He died in the electric chair in January 1936. Fish's attorney, James Dempsey, had Fish's handwritten final statement and refused to show the documents to anyone. He said, "I will never show it to anyone. It was the most filthy string of obscenities that I have ever read."
I could imagine.
And that's how he died. And that was his life and all of its horror.
That, how are we going to follow up with that? He's a sick fuck.
You know, I spent a while reading on him, and it makes you nauseous. Physically. Yeah, she was over here barfing, yeah.
Eyes watering, gagging. It was the whole 9 yards.
I don't know. A lot of the things about this case, though, like, it has me a little wondering, like, some people have a theory that he didn't do this all alone, that he had
An accomplices.
He had made a statement somewhere saying that people like him have a way of finding one another.
Oh.
And then with Grace Budd, as he was walking away with her, some of the local children had seen them and stated that there was a car waiting for them, and that she got in the car with him, so there might have been an accomplice there.
Oh.
But then other sources say, so it's hard to say. We weren't there.
Right.
Again, I highly recommend you reading Deranged. I don't know how he got his information, where it came from, but it was so in depth. So yeah, if you're interested in hearing more in depth, I left a lot out still, and so check it out. There's a lot if you're still interested. If not, I hope you can forget all this, because I would kind of like to forget all this.
Me too.
Well, that was our first episode. We hope you guys liked it. And we hope you come back.
Yes. And we will have more episodes. And we'll give you our social media information.
Yep. And all of my sources, I will link, so you guys can check them out too, if you want to read more on Albert. And we'll talk to you guys later.